I'm just curious now, 48 hours later, I think. Yeah, 48 hours later. Can you sort of just give us some of your thoughts on what you think this season was?
Yeah, I feel like I still need some time to decompress. I will answer the best that I possibly can. Uh, you want to be able to be objective about all of it. And the first most important part about it is you come together to try to do something special. We are all here in that locker room to produce a result. And it's a bottom line business. We did not accomplish the goal that we set out for ourselves. However, with all that said, you also want to create memories. You want to have an enjoyable experience through an arduous, challenging 7 or 8 month season. You don't want to just go through a season and only focus on the bottom line and get to the playoffs and rely on something that is not guaranteed. This is a tough business. It's a tough challenge to be able to compete for an NBA title. It's the toughest thing any of us can try to do collectively in this business. But in terms of the day-to-day, interactions, and it's all of it, the good, the bad, and everything in between, was just a really gratifying and memorable season. I really enjoyed connecting with the guys in the locker room. I enjoyed experiencing the competition together. I enjoyed the handling of adversity, together without excuses, and experiencing things that we didn't anticipate because of the adversity. And we grew and got better because of it. And we became even closer, I think, because of all the adversity. And then along the way, we had a lot of laughs, a lot of joy, a lot of fun, some things that probably on the outside you don't necessarily think of with Heat culture, but that is a big part of it. You're going to be around each other, so much. More often, we're going to spend more time around each other and staff members and road trips away from home. You're going to spend more time with this group than we actually do with our real families. And so you want to be able to enjoy those relationships and grow and connect in a deep way. And I think we all did. And that'll go down as a great season to be able to go through it together, even without accomplishing our goal that we set out for ourselves.
Erik, obviously your young players always improve during an off season. I was curious how the process will work with the guys in their 20s, Bam, Gabe, Max. Do you sit down with them, you and maybe even Pat, and say, here's where I want you to improve? And an older veteran like Bam, do you ask him, tell me what you'd like to incorporate, and then you okay it? How does that process work?
Yeah, that's definitely part of the process. That's not going to happen tomorrow. That won't happen next week, but we'll connect later on this month. And I always connect with the guys and communicate, a plan, for the summer, and get their input on how they see things. And it ultimately has to be a collaboration, but there will be an intentional plan at the end of it, where we want to go with that. And that'll be with everybody. I mean, our young guys are going to have, the stereotypical Miami Heat player development program experience this summer. We get the full summer of it, get to ramp up for Summer League. By the time we get to early July, I think that'll be the appropriate time for all of us to look forward to something, and get over this and get past this, and now just really focus on the improvement of the young guys and the excitement of that. We've have so many examples of guys that have gone through a summer like this and have been able to totally transform into a much better player and more productive player, and that's fun. I love that process. For the mid-vet guys like Gabe and Bam, we'll put together a program for them, and we'll work with them, to put it, to execute it. And then the same thing with our veteran guys. We'll work with them and see where we can improve in the margins. I think what we've proven, it doesn't matter, what your age is. It doesn't have to be that cliche that you can only make big improvements your first 3 years of your career. That's not true. We've seen it, with guys in their 30s that have made significant improvements in their game. I think Jimmy's an example of that. I think, in his 30s, he's become a much better player from all the experiences, but also improvement in his skills and all the things that he can bring to the game. He's really improved in that regard, and so for all the guys on our roster, we'll be seeking major improvement, and then as a staff, I think some of the most fruitful and most important improvements that I've experienced as a head coach, fortunately and unfortunately, have come off of really disappointing ends to a season. And we'll get together as a staff and really try to learn from this and see where we can improve as well.
Spo, to go from leading the league in three-point shooting to 31% in the postseason, how hard is that to explain? And I guess how would you explain it if you could, just the drop-off from the regular season to the playoffs?
Yeah, I didn't look into it in depth with other teams as well. I have a couple things at the top of my mind. One, our team proved that we could win in a lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to just be with three-point shooting. The three-point shooting is a weapon for every team, and I think you've seen that in every series. Teams that would win the three-point game probably put themselves in a pretty good chance to win the game, and that's on both sides. If you had explosions from the three-point line and were able to limit the three-point shooting for the other team, the math just wouldn't add up at times. But then you also saw across the board, teams able to really win in the mud, and you certainly saw that with us. My other thought about that is just the level of scouting and attention to detail defensively in the playoffs. It increases exponentially. So some of those looks, even though they may have been described as open or lightly contested, that's a different open or lightly contested shot than if it happens in December or January. Our shooters will continue to work on their ability, to make shots under duress with shorter windows. But my initial thought, and I'll go into a full autopsy on that this summer. My instinct on that is, I think that was overplayed. Like, it still came down to a few possessions where we could have gotten into this next round regardless of that shooting. I know you can get stuck on that in percentages. Ultimately, it's about getting the win, and there's a myriad of different ways that you can, and also it is required, to be able to effectively find different ways to win in the playoffs. The defenses are just too good. You can't rely on one thing, regardless. That's just one thing, but also you can't just rely on your ability to get to the free throw line, your ability to attack, ability to get in transition. You have to have a lot of different solutions at different times during a series, and certainly against different opponents.
This team has always kept a standard for conditioning from Pat Riley onward, and has always stressed the older you get, the more vigilant you have to get. Did Kyle Lowry fully meet the Heat's conditioning standards this season? And as an older player who's going to be here at 37 and 38, is that something you need to work forward with him, like you've done with others, to maximize his contribution going forward?
Yeah, I mean, you have to take into the context everything. The missed games, injuries. It's not all apples to apples, and then trying to ramp up, as quickly as you possibly can in the middle of a series. These are not excuses. They're just, it's just the reality. I thought Kyle was in an incredible groove, about 6 weeks before the playoffs. I think for his example, if we could have started the playoffs then, it would have been a perfect time, for him. And then, next year, all our vets, the challenge will be how they can each come back, better. Maybe add a couple different things, to the game. I think Kyle will come back next training camp in the best shape of his career. That certainly is important, as you get further along in your career and into your 30s, conditioning and keeping your body, right. That's your ultimate opponent is Father Time. And Kyle understands that, as well as anybody. He trains hard. He really works at it, behind the scenes, and he does that during the season as well.
There's a lot of layers to this, and every season isn't apples to apples. There's injuries, but the last 3 teams that have beaten you all seem to have some similarities defensively. They've all been big. They've all kind of tried to take away your shooters. Are there any takeaways? Is there a through line between the defenses that have beaten you, and are there adjustments you want to make to the offense to try and counter that kind of?
Yeah, we'll take a deep dive into that. I would say I wouldn't view Boston and Milwaukee similar. Where you view them as similar is they both have championship quality defenses. They do it in different ways. The size factor, I felt less of that against Boston. It was more their versatility, switchability, guys that could guard multiple different positions, even though they weren't always in that switch scheme. Milwaukee was much more like really, protecting the rim. So it's just different things, but yeah, when I talk about you have to find different solutions, you have to have the versatility of your roster, you have to have a diversity of your menu to be able to find those solutions for whatever the opponent is presenting you. And you're only going to face great defenses by the time you get to the conference finals.
Eric, obviously Tyler had a great season, won 6th Man of the Year, and then had the injury in the playoffs. But he wasn't scoring to the level prior to the injury that he was in the playoffs that he did in the regular season. What do you make of Tyler's postseason as a whole?
Yeah, I think it was really important, to go through that. And every great player, has a journey in the playoffs. Everybody has a memory of great players just being immediately great in all these pressure moments, from the get-go. But you look at the history of the game, there always is, a process to it. And I think, Tyler's work ethic, his commitment, to studying and improving and working on his skill level as teams are really starting to try to scheme against him, I think that's the ultimate compliment. What it proved to me in my eyes is that teams they see how important he is. They're not going to just let him play. And we saw basically 3 different schemes in 3 different series against him. And I think he just puts that, catalogs it in his brain and then goes to work on it. And I think that'll be really important, moving forward. His skill level is so high, and his work ethic, and how much he puts into it. He's only going to continue to get exponentially better during seasons, and then that'll translate to the playoffs. Skill and having a lot of different ways to attack offensively always plays well in the playoffs eventually. It might not happen exactly on the timeline, that a player or team may want it, but eventually you just can't contain that kind of skill.
So PJ seemed to be a known commodity when he got here, but what surprised you, in your first experience coaching him, and how important was he, not only to the defensively, but to what you guys did offensively?
He was so important all across the board. That competitive spirit, his competitive will, his consistent toughness that you could just count on every single day, and he has a way of communicating that and inspiring everybody in the locker room. that is so genuine. And if you're just observing it from the outside, you're like, wow, that's intense. But to everybody in the locker room, it's a special, genuine feeling. When you have somebody that is that committed to winning and helping other guys. He's so unselfish, as a player, always taking on the biggest challenges. Defensively, he'll do all the little things, the dirty work, the tough things, and never complain about it. He never complains or talks about his shots. He's just completely selfless, an absolute throwback player. That's why he's beloved, by staff and everybody in the locker room. If I had to pick, something that surprised me, it would be certainly the skill level offensively. That wasn't necessarily something that we were planning on. The adversity kind of brought it out, where we had to find different solutions offensively when we went through the injuries, and Jimmy and Bam were out, and we had a bunch of other guys out as well. We needed, to put the ball somewhere. And he had mentioned to me, when we went out to dinner in L.A., that he had played point guard before when he played in Germany. And I laughed. I was with Chet. We were at dinner with him. And I was like, no way, were you a point guard? And he swore on it. And I said, okay, well, at some point we're probably going to have to find out. We've had a lot of guys in that position where we let them handle and everything. And sure enough, about two weeks later, we started going through our injuries. We're like, all right, we're about to find out right now. We're going to start using him as a trigger, have him handle more, play out of the post with him or the elbows. And he was just sensational, in those moments. It shouldn't have been a surprise to me. If you're that much of a high IQ player defensively and you see things happen before they happen, you have to have incredible instincts defensively and toughness, experience, competitive will. But to be really elite defensively also, you have to be able to see plays before they happen. And that's IQ. That's IQ for the game. That's intelligence for the game. And he has that, times 10. And offensively, he has a great feel, even though, he's mostly been a spot-up shooter. But he still knows how to get to spacing. He knows how to help your best players be great. And then, why I say it shouldn't have surprised me. If you know how to do all those things, you definitely see the game in a deep level. And that's what we saw with him we eventually got to know him. And he really revealed that he could be a really good passer in our system. And that was fun to see.
Erik, Vic was saying he's looking forward to having a full summer, particularly on the offensive end, to try to regain everything fully that he had pre-injury. Could you please assess where he stands and if you think there's still a substantially higher level he can get to as far as offensive efficiency?
I mean, without a doubt. Coach Quinn showed me, look, I was aware of this. I'm fully aware because I've been with him for a full year. But that stat in the last 3 years, how many games that he had missed, and then how many regular seasons games he's played in the last 3 years, for him to do what he did in this playoff run is really unheard of. Really, to have no regular season games and not have a base of weeks and months to get in a rhythm and a flow and test your health and then get into a rhythm. There was hardly any of that. He had some practices, starting in January, February, but we weren't practicing a ton, so it was mostly a bunch of work, behind the scenes. And then, the quickest way for him to find his rhythm was defensively. His instincts, once he got healthy, he immediately, you saw his presence defensively and how impactful he could be. And then offensively, as the playoffs went on, that's how funny it is. Crazy. Like, he's getting in better rhythm, in the most pressure-packed moments. But yeah, he has not had that summer of work, and Vic has a great work ethic. I've seen him over the years. He's lived and worked in Miami. When he was healthy, I saw him work. And his capacity to work is extremely high. So he hasn't had a summer like this in probably, 4 summers? Yeah, you're going to see a totally different Vic next year by the time he gets to training camp. He's going into the summer physically able, to work at his craft, and he'll get back to the player that people are accustomed to seeing.
The last time you guys reached these heights, there were other outside front office concerns that came into place. Jay Crowder fit in wonderfully, but there were other factors. This team, as composed, you have the ability to keep it entirely intact. I understand there's Pat and there's Andy and the other parts. Erik Spoelstra as coach, would you like to have another chance with this group intact as is to make a run, even if it means not adding what people outside might think is a personnel upgrade?
Yeah. Ira, you know me so well.
Too well.
You phrased that impeccably well. You did not leave me any gaps, it is a Pat thing, but look at the history of how we've done things since Pat and Mickey have created this culture. Anytime we're close, and have banged on the door, and even if it ended on a disappointing loss, our history has shown that we usually bring, the majority of the group back, the core back, and we take another shot at it. Of course, you're talking 48 hours, and after we had an opportunity, on a make or a miss to potentially get to the next round, yeah, you want to have, a chance to do it again with the same group. I love this group. I love the locker room, and I'm just really grateful that we had an opportunity, to collaborate and work together and experience everything, this season. It's a beautiful profession we live in, and it's been crazy, all around, the world, and dealing with everything we've been dealing with. But for us to be able to do what we do and do this together with a bunch of like-minded people, in terms of how we view competition, man, it doesn't get much better than that. And I'm just, I'm really grateful for this year and this season. It made me better, and I really enjoyed it. I filled out a lot of my journal entries in a positive way from these experiences.
All right, Coach, thank you.
All right, appreciate all of you. We will see you probably in Summer League, right? All right. You can catch me in a very casual way in Vegas. All right. Maybe we all can get out for a coffee or a beverage or something. All right. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks so much.
Caleb, NBA seasons can be such wild rides, and it can be the best of the best and the rough of the roughest. There was a point at midseason where, your upward curve was just pointing to the stars, and then injuries got in the way. Then rotations were changed a little. Mm-hmm. Sort of, what's your takeaway of the season that you had, and especially, honestly, since you are going into free agency?
I think it was a big season. Obviously, like you said, is having to deal with a lot in such a short amount of time. In one season, it's been up and down, and whether it's rotations or injuries or whatever, I just think that it's really helped progress my mindset and my mentality going into it, just to be able to adjust to everything and being okay with it, and accept that's part of my role. That's the role I accepted when I came here, and when I got signed, to know that was going to be my position, and things were going to fluctuate, and I had to be okay with it and adjust on the fly. So I think that's only going to make me a better player and only make me mentally stronger. So I don't think it does anything but help me.
From last summer, where you didn't know if you were going to get picked up, you didn't know if you were going to get signed, and you come here and things overall went really well. Do you feel like you've kind of figured out not only what your game is and what your role is, but in some ways your place in the league this year?
I definitely think so. I think it just shed light on it, man. I think it's tip of the iceberg type of thing with me, where I feel like I could be one of those guys that fluctuates, where it's kind of whatever a team needs from me. If you need a guy to come off the bench and bring energy and do that stuff, I can do that. I feel like I can step in and start. Like, it doesn't matter what the role or what a team needs from me. I feel like I can fill that void. And obviously, like you said, it's just, I think my game expanded shooting wise, being more efficient and being more consistent, and still learning how to do that year in and year out. And I just think that I took big steps, and I think I'm only going to take even larger steps after this going forward. So.
Caleb, with how you played this year, obviously there's going to be a market for you in free agency. It's possible for two things to be true. You can want to return here, but you can also be curious to see what you can get on the open market. Is that the case for you, where both of those things are true?
Obviously, being open-minded, but I want to be here. You know what I mean? I've got better here, and I believe I'll get better here. Obviously, I want the situation just want a great situation no matter what. But I just think that how close I've gotten with the guys and the people here, and how much better and more confident I've been here. And I feel like my team and my staff believes in me and believes that I'm going to get better here. So obviously, being open-minded is going to free agency. Like, you have to be, and it's my first experience with that. But I want to be here. I love being here. I want to be here. So that's all I got on my mind right now until I see what happens or whatever type of experience I'm going to get in free agency. So yeah.
And Caleb, if you want to be here, and now you've seen kind of how you fit here over here, you mentioned working on your shooting and coming up this year. Do you see, like, to become the guy who's always in the rotation, there's never any question, what is the next step? Is it consistency with the three-point shot, or are there other things that you want to add?
Yeah, I just think it has to do a little bit of, obviously, like you said, just being more consistent, more efficient. But obviously, it takes time too. Just like even a year like this, it just puts experience under my belt, and that just gives me another year. And this is my first full season with the guys and with the staff. So I think that helps me for a time like maybe next year too, if we get in similar situations that. That's just me earning trust by being here too. You know what I mean? So definitely being more efficient and productive in those minutes. But at the same time, I just think it just comes with experience and being trusted the longer that I'm here. So.
Caleb, having along the line back here.
Oh shoot! All right.
Hey, along the lines of what you were speaking about, like wanting to be here and wanting to stay here and how you like it. Until you see it, until you see what the Heat culture everyone talks about is, how do you explain it that, your confidence went up, your belief in yourself went up, all that stuff. How do you explain that? How do you conceptualize that to others who might not be in it?
Yeah, it's tough, man, because like you said, like if you never experienced that, it's hard for some people to get it. You know what I mean? If you're not seeing it firsthand. But the best way I can kind of explain it is. Where you just feel like you fit, you know what I mean? That's the only way you can really explain it. So if someone's somewhere where they aren't meshing well, or they're not, trying to figure it out, like they won't get it. Yeah, but I feel like once I got here, I kind of knew pretty quickly, like these are my type of guys mentally and the work ethic and to every aspect of, everything in this organization. I feel like this is definitely my place for me. This is the place for me, and that's what it's felt like since I've gotten here. So, and that's why I feel like I made such a big jump so quickly while I've been here, and why I think that I'll make even bigger jumps while I'm here. So that's the only way. It's hard to explain to some people if they're not experiencing that.
Caleb, you talked about some of the stuff you want to improve on, but being your first playoff run and being a totally, different game in the postseason, is there any specific skill set that changed from the regular season to the playoffs that you're like, that's the one thing I have to focus on to beat in that time of year?
Yeah, obviously I think that the game slowed down a little bit, but that's why it's so important for a guy like PJ and the role he plays, where he's kind of a tweener. Someone like me, I'm in a similar role as him, and just learning how to tweak your game to adjust to whoever you're playing. You know what I mean? So it slowed down a little bit. So to be able to be a playmaker in the way he playmakes, whether it's being a screener or a roller, and being a playmaker off the roll or popping, more like kind of playing like a big, but even though I'm a guard, you know what I mean, or a wing or whatever. So just to be able to, I just think that versatility is huge in the playoffs. That's why you see guys like Draymond is so effective, you know what I mean, and he's so, he makes their team go, and he's guys, besides obviously them having a lot of great shooters, but he playmakes, and he plays kind of like that big position, but he can guard multiple positions, and he can play make while he's being guarded by big. So just to be able to kind of take something like that away from and maybe implement that here like PJ does is, something, another step I'll be able to take to expand my game.
All right, Caleb, thank you.
Appreciate y'all. No problem.
Will we have you here again on a player roster capacity next season, Udonis?
I probably could have asked that question for you. Like, it was no surprise that was going to be the first question. As usual, I mean, I have not recovered from obviously the loss to Boston. So, as usual, I take my time, sit down with the family, Pat, Mickey, and talk about what's next and where it goes.
That said, do you want to come back as of now as you go into that conversation? Right now, coming off 48 hours later, do you want to, at this moment, come back?
I mean, hell, I want to be playing right now. I can get what I want. I want to still be playing. So I'm not getting what I want in the moment. So right now it's time to take a mental break and then figure that out after that.
Bam always seems to take a lot of unfair criticism for the most part, but he answered in some big ways in this Boston series. What did you take away from the series for him, and what do you think he can build on going into what's for him going to be one of his first full off seasons to work?
I mean, that he's capable. I think, a lot of people question, was he capable? And he showed that he's capable, and not just capable, but capable of doing it on a big stage, in big time moments when we needed it the most. And I think that was a lot of the questions that people were asking. And, I try to explain to a lot of people, it's not just, black and white for Bam. A lot of times when you have a guy who hands the ball off or who creates triggers, he's just a roll to the basket guy. He doesn't have any other skill set. Bam is a guy who creates triggers, rolls to the basket, but he also has a very high skill set and has to do a lot of different things for us offensively and defensively. So it's not just as easy as saying, go out there and go for yours, Bam. If it was that easy, I think he would get it. But when you have to balance that with getting guys involved and rolling to the basket to create triggers to get other guys shot and making sure that you be able to get your shot and get yourself involved, it becomes a little confusing sometimes, for a young basketball player. I think that was the toughest thing for Bam to, recognize those moments and take advantage of them and attack them.
Obviously, Tyler had a great regular season, but what do you think he learned from this postseason when teams were throwing different coverages at him, trapping him, take the ball out of his hands? What do you think he could take away from this playoff experience?
I think he's understood that it was going to be a different approach going into the playoffs. I think that was a conversation that I had with him, that, teams are going to focus on a lot of different things, and you would be one of them. I remember back in the playoff series when we were playing against OKC, and, the focus was, on, Westbrook and Kevin Durant. And the main focus that we had as a team was stopping James Harden, coming off the bench and the impact that he had off the bench. So I can see a team coming into a series against us really having an impact of focusing and taking Tyler out of a series offensively. And I had that conversation with him, so he was prepared for that. But unfortunately, he had his injury. But coming into a series or any kind of game, I will express to Tyler, and I think Tyler understands that he can help us win basketball games in more ways than just scoring the basketball. He's improved with his passing. He's getting better with his defense and understanding being in the right place at the right time. But these are all things that he's just got to continue to work on.
There are things that you already knew before the season, like how good Tyler would be. I remember talking about that with you. There are things that we collectively as a media group learned this season, like Strus, Vincent, are contributing good NBA rotation players. Can you give me a couple examples, UD, of things that you learned specifically about this roster or individual players that impressed you over the course of the last 9 months?
I think the only person who was impressed was the people on TV. I wasn't impressed at all, and I believe in hard work. I believe in my guys. And that's just the conversation that I was having, about a lot of different things. It was never personal about, Draymond or anything like that, just to touch on that. It was more so, I just want my guys to have the respect that they deserve. I understand that there's a lot of undrafted guys on this team. I understand that, we might not have the guys that might score 60 or 70 points, but we got guys that come in every day, work their ass off, great teammates, and really focus on the right things and kind of try to contribute to winning. Regardless of whether people understand that or not, it shouldn't be disrespected or overlooked by anybody. And for me, I'm always gonna speak up for my guys, and my guys bust their ass every day. The Max Struces and the Duncans and the Calebs and all these guys that are undrafted that people just don't know their names. I'm happy that those guys got to step out on this huge stage, and people got to see them play the way they were capable of playing, and see why we made it to where we are. I'm not embarrassed, and I have no complaints. I'm actually proud of my guys.
You just mentioned how you're still not over the loss from the weekend, and the cameras caught you. You very visibly frustrated after the final buzzer there. What specifically was so frustrating about the loss and the way the season turned out for you guys?
I mean, you just want it for your guys. Like I said, I see how these guys work. You know, I see the body of work that they put in. You know, when people aren't here, you know, these guys really start. They work 2 months before training camp. These guys are in here working. You know, I'm old, so I'm not here that early. But our young guys are here. You know what I'm saying? They here every day, punching the clock, putting in that work. It's no coincidence the results you see. You know, so for me, you know, watching those guys be so close and you know, not be able to get over the hump, you know, it's hurtful. You know what I'm saying? Because I want them to feel what it feels like to be a champion. Because like I tell these guys all the time, you know, all year, you know, we sit back and, you know, we watch and we pay attention, but we don't say anything. But we've been overlooked, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, this was our time to speak up and speak for ourselves. And whether we won or not, I think all of our guys spoke very loudly and clearly when they had the opportunity with the way they played and approached these games.
Did you think Jimmy's shot was going in? What was kind of going through your head when he took it?
Yeah, I thought it was going in, and I thought it was a great shot. I've been around a lot of great basketball players, man. And I think all those guys, when they have the opportunity to end a series and end a team, they take it. And he just was following in line with what the great players would do. He had the space. You know, Al was in the back pedal. You know, there was a lot of space on the pull-up. I'm living with that. I'm living with it. You know, that's what great players do, man. You go for the win. You go for the kill. You know what I'm saying? And that's what he did. And it didn't work out that way. But, you know, if we had to do it again, I want him to take that shot again. He makes that shot.
UD, you were here in 2005 for the disappointment of losing an Eastern Conference Finals with your team not totally healthy, with what happened with Dwayne that year. That offseason, a lot of players went out and a lot of players came in. Pat kind of reshuffled the roster. You ended up winning a championship. Do you anticipate that kind of summer here? I mean, you guys were close and everybody says you run it back, but that summer you didn't.
I think you probably about a year or two too early with that question, Ethan. You double back when I get that ownership spot. I might have that answer for you. Right now, I don't know how that's gonna work. You know, that's not my space. My space is to make sure we get the most and maximize the potential of the guys that do come in here. And that's where I stay at. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty good at that. You know what I'm saying? Spoels at the head. And, you know, I finish it up from the back, and we have a great coaching staff in the middle. We've been to, you know, 2 out of the last 3 Eastern Conference Finals, and we've been doing well with all things considered. So I don't know how that goes. We'll see.
So we're confirming ownership in 2 years?
That's the plan, Ethan. We'll see. You know, we can't guarantee anything, but that's hopefully what we work on here. Got a lot going on, man. It's a lot inside this head right here.
You just following up on Jimmy and the great ones taking that shot. You've seen so many great teammates down here in great playoff runs. What do you think this playoff run says about Jimmy and kind of his standing in the game? Because sometimes he is overlooked too.
I think a lot of times Jimmy gets overlooked. You know, for whatever reason, if people feel like it's separation between Jimmy and the guys that can really take you to a championship and actually win you a championship. And I don't understand that. I think a lot of times the heart of a champion gets overlooked. And I think that's what, you know, people, you know, confuse with Jimmy, you know, his heart and him being, you know, a little bit rough around the edges. And I think people don't understand that that's really, you know what I'm saying, the definition of who a champion is. If you can get people to believe in you and have the kind of heart that you have, but they really don't, but they can believe that they can, And that's how you get people to believe, and that's how you get people to follow you, and that's how you become a champion. So with the heart and grit that Jimmy has, man, he invested that, and he gets everybody to feel like that and play like that. And even if you're not as tough as Jimmy, even if you're not as aggressive as Jimmy, if you believe that you are as tough as Jimmy, if you believe as you are as aggressive as Jimmy, if everybody can believe, then you see you get the most out of everybody. And I think that was the step that Jimmy took as far as getting everybody to believe. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't just about his numbers. You know, his numbers were insane. His numbers were great. But I think Jimmy got everybody to really believe. And once everybody believed, they started to follow.
You're obviously good at a lot of things and could be good at a lot of things post-playing. I know you've talked about ownership today with us and with Jim Barry previously. Beyond that, what would appeal to you in basketball, do you think, after playing? Would it be working in a front office and helping make personnel decisions, scouting, being on a coaching staff? Udonis?
Nah. So coaching don't work for me. And I'm going to tell you why. I got too much going on outside in the city. Got too much. You know what I'm saying? I'm a businessman. You know what I mean? Outside of my franchises, you know, the next step is a mental health and drug rehab facility that we're working on. I also have my affordable housing projects, my FTX partnership. Also ventured out into the medical field with my wife. So it's just a lot going on right now. I don't have the time to dedicate. I know coaches got to be here before the players. It's hard enough for me to get here as it is now. So coaching doesn't work for me, but I think impacting this organization, that's always going to be a priority for me. It's always going to be something near and dear to my heart. That's always going to be something that's important to me. And that's always going to something that's going to bring out the best of me. You know, that's always going to bring out the best of me. Because when it's something that, you know, that's important to you and it's something that you really care about, you give it the best version of yourself and it doesn't seem like work. And that's something that just doesn't seem like work when I'm here. You know what I'm saying? Running up and down the court, practicing every day, even doing the stuff that I got to do just to be in shape and keep up with these guys. It doesn't seem like work. You know what I mean? Because I have the opportunity to just impact these guys and watch them do it on the basketball court. So I love that, and that's always going to be something that's just going to be a part of me, and I'm going to be invested in. Is impacting this organization at any level. And I just think as time goes on and you start to make that pivot, you know, that's something that just makes, you know, the most sense. And then, you know, it's going to be really serious with me and D-Wade then. Yeah, it's going to be on then. Ownership, if I can get in that seat, me and D-Wade going to have a lot to talk about.
How close do you think Omer is to being a consistent rotation player in this?
I love O, man. O took some steps. O strong as hell. O might be the strongest player we got. You know, for me, it's just getting an opportunity to play. You know, O just has to get the opportunity to play and go out there and contribute. You know, we got a lot of guys that, you know, didn't get the chance to go out there and play, but the one thing we did have was guys that when they got their opportunity, a number was called, they stepped up and they contributed. And I think that's what O did time and time again. And he proved that he's reliable, he's capable, and if he gets, you know, if he gets consistent minutes, that he can be a consistent basketball player for us. I think he's only going to get better. I don't think people even seen to scratch the surface of his skill level. You know, we use him as a roll to the basket big, but he can also step away, stretch the floor, and shoot the three a little bit, and do things like that.
Just looking at the job PJ did this season as a leader, Spo was just saying that he was surprised about his offensive game. Was anything surprising about the job he did, and just how impactful was he this season as a leader?
Man, I was surprised at just how hard and how consistent and just how, you know, tough PJ is. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's very few guys that I feel like, you know, approach the game every night the way I did. You know what I'm saying? And PJ just happened to be one of them. You know what I'm saying? So I was just thankful to have a guy like PJ on our team. You know what I'm saying? I'm watching this guy go out every night and burn the candle from both ends and give you everything he got. Like, he ain't leaving nothing, you know what I'm saying, when the clock hit, you know, zeros. And that's admirable, you know what I'm saying? Through rain, sleet, snow, you know, bumped up, bruised, PJ was going to give you, you know, everything he had 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. So I'm thankful for a guy like PJ. Guys like PJ are overlooked, and, you know, he's a warrior, and we appreciate a guy like PJ. Great team player. Always positive, hold guys accountable, defensive first type guy. And he got a little offense, like Spo said. He got a little game to him offensively with his trickery, his fake handoffs, his floater, different things like that.
Thanks, UD.
Thank you.
We've sort of been waiting since Sunday to ask you this question.
I already know what that is.
Did Max Strus step on the line? Did Max Strus think there was any chance he stepped on the line? Did Max Strus go back and look at the video and become convinced he stepped on the line? And lastly, my four-part question, Your Honor, when Max Strus heard the announcement in the arena that his shot not only wasn't taken from a 3 to a 2, but to a nothing, can you just take us through that whole wildness? Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for pissing me off again. But yeah, I don't know how that was called that after I've seen the video. It kind of, they say they have that rule to take the human error out of the game, and then the human error makes an error on the video. So I don't know, but hopefully I don't get fined. But yeah, I'm obviously not happy about it, but it is what it is at this point. I guess we can't really do anything. But it definitely changed the game and the momentum. I think it went from a 6-point game to an 11-point game, and with no time coming off the clock. So, yeah, it is what it is. I guess is the best I could put it. I'm not happy about it, but I guess you just got to move on.
I don't mean to make you the spokesperson for the team's 3-point shooting overall, but just from going where it was in the regular season to where it was in the playoffs, did the process change in some way behind how you guys were able to get your 3-point shots, and what were teams able to take away from you guys as a unit?
Well, yeah, that's just what it was. I mean, teams made adjustments to what we were good at and what works. I mean, that's the name of the game in the playoffs, and teams did a good job of taking us out of those actions and triggers that, got us open threes. So, especially Boston. I mean, I got to give their hats off for that. Those guys defended very well and made me do more than just shoot threes. So, you can put the full blame on me for our 3-point shooting percentage. I should be the leader of that as best shooter on the team. So I'll obviously look at the numbers as a way to get better and push myself this summer to be better next year.
You've obviously proven this year, Max, that you're not only a rotation player, but you're a starting NBA player. The next step for you in skill development is what, if there's a specific thing you already have in mind?
Yeah, just got to be more complete. Obviously, teams are going to force me to make plays inside the arc, so I got to get better there. And I think I've taken leaps and bounds as a player in this league, and our team didn't have the outcome that we wanted, but looking through the full year, I think I've had a pretty successful season personally. So, I've grown a lot and learned a lot, and there's definitely areas for improvement, and that's exciting about this game. That's what, wants you to keep flourishing, is the challenges that come with it and the ways you can get better.
So obviously, last year you were in Summer League, and you were getting a lot of those reps. What are the plans for this summer in terms of how you want to approch them?
I'm playing in Summer League again.
I was going to say, you're not, are you?
No, I'm not.
No. One more reason to go to Vegas.
Yeah, no.
So are you going home to Chicago? I mean, what's the sort of the
Still trying to figure it out. Obviously, everything's just so fresh from the season ending, so don't have my plans yet, but I'll be home for a good amount. But wherever it is, I'll be working out and just getting my body right first, and then we'll go from there and just keep working, keep going at it, and be ready for next year.
Just to follow that real quick, I know a lot of guys didn't want to make excuses at the end, but you were clearly dealing with something also, weren't you? Was the hamstring a problem in the postseason, or?
I'm all good.
Okay.
Did you consider yourself a good defender before the season, and what growth do you think you've made this year on the end of the court? how would you label yourself as a defender right now?
I mean, I always thought I was solid on the defensive end, but I think this year proved that to other people. I think I've gotten more respect and have gained more respect around the league as a better defender, and that's not something that's just going to go away. People are still going to try me and attack me, and I hope they do, because I think it takes them out of their rhythm, it takes them out of their offense, and I'm just going to keep proving over and over again that I can guard in this league and be a guy that can stop people.
Did you receive any compliments from anybody during the playoffs where they were surprised maybe, or did anybody say anything to you as far as your defense that stood out?
No, I don't really need other people's approval.
Just to follow up about the playoffs, even when the shots weren't falling, teams were keying in on you and trying to take you away, and that was giving guys like Jimmy and Bam spacing to attack one-on-one a lot of times, or at least get in the paint. Is that sort of half the battle? Is you're doing your job just by being on the court, and throughout your performance this season, you've earned the respect of other teams to defend you that way?
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, when you look at it, the starting lineup, I mean, they put one of their better defenders on me, so I got to, personally, that should be an achievement in itself. That coming from where I've came from this season to be in the playoffs and have, to start the series. I mean, Marcus Smart was guarding me, who's the defensive player of the year, so that's got to say something in itself that I did somewhat of a good job this year. So, I think obviously the spacing is huge for us and what we do, and huge for Jimmy and how he gets in the paint. So I think that definitely is a huge help. But I got to figure out other ways to be more helpful, and we all got to figure out ways to do that and then be better next year.
All right, Max, thank you.
Thank you.
Gabe, you have always spoken about the greater good, giving in for the team. You play a lot. You might not play at all some games, all part of the process. But players also reach a point in their career where they feel they've sort of gone through that, and they would also like to play. Are you at a point now where the goal, the hope, or I don't want to say demand, but something along those lines is a rotation role going forward based on what you have achieved this season?
Well, first off, I think every player, even the greater good or not, wants to play. And I think I've shown I can be a rotational player in this league. And so obviously, yes, I would love to play every game as much as I would like to play, but that's not always necessarily how the game goes. And looking forward to next season.
Gabe, you've grown in so many areas. Where do you think you're proudest of individually in your growth this year? We saw the defense last year. Is it playmaking? Is it getting the knee brace off and getting your shot back to where it was? What specific area?
Probably the playmaking. I think the shot was something I never really worried too much about. I've been doing it my whole life, and eventually the numbers are going to balance themselves out. And but playmaking on that side of the ball, and being more of a point guard and showing I can truly be a point guard in this league, that was a really fun challenge and experience for me.
So Spose talked about how they had to turn you in from a scorer into a 3-and-D guy. You had to find your shot, like you were just talking about. You had to, advance your playmaking. Do you feel like you've found your role? You've kind of figured out who you are as a basketball player in this league?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've worn a lot of hats this year, say it that way, and so determining which hat is my best hat to wear, that can be, depends on who you ask, I guess. But it's been fun, and I'd like to be valuable and be on the court as much as possible. So if that requires wearing different hats, then I'll wear whatever hat it takes to be on the court. So.
And Gabe, just kind of piggybacking off of that, I think it was during the series with Philly where people started to learn Gabe Vincent's name kind of across the country. So going into the off season, where does your confidence sit knowing that people are talking about Gabe and the contributions you made to this team this year?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's, I think, similar to a lot of our guys. We look at it all of how I could have done more and what more I could have done. And to me, I just see it as a whole lot of room for improvement and a lot of work to do. So I'm looking forward to the off season. I'm looking forward to the grind and getting back in the lab and trying to come back next year with something different.
Obviously, last offseason you had the Olympics, and then you were part of Summer League. How will this offseason be different, I guess, in that regard? And
I think
what's
it might be a real off season to begin with. I haven't really stopped playing basketball in 12 months, so.
what specific areas of your game, off the top of your head, do you kind of want to work on this summer going into next year?
Yeah, I think, I think we've seen a little bit this year at the mid-range isn't dead. I think playing in the pocket of that pick and roll, that shot's available for me a lot. So being consistent, be able to score that ball within that pocket, I think that'd be helpful. Obviously, being more consistent of a shooter. Big reason of why I got here is because of my shot, and the more consistent I can be with that, obviously the greater impact I can have on that side of the ball and continue to grow as a point guard as well.
You obviously earned so much respect in the league with how you played this year. Leaving the court, was there anything that Doc Rivers, McMillan, Udoka, or any of the players on Atlanta, Philly, Boston said to you that was meaningful?
I think we just, as a team, we played so hard and competed so hard, and we didn't really shy away from anything. That a lot of the comments revolved around that. Way to compete, way to play hard, and it was just a lot of respect. At the end of the day, we go out there, we play the game hard, and win, lose, draw, we just leave it out there.
Gabe, now that you have proven you can be a rotational player, and obviously you're playing the point guard position, do you think you can use your voice a little bit more next year? Will you feel more comfortable in that role as kind of a sort of a young veteran on this team instead of somebody who's trying to earn his spot?
Absolutely. I don't think I was ever shy to use my voice. I think I had a mutual respect with even the veterans in our team, the leaders in our team, to where if I felt compelled to speak up and have something really be heard, I had no shame or second thought in doing it. But like you said, it's another year I've been in the league, and so I have no issue speaking up on anything.
With these being your first, real consistent postseason minutes, how is the postseason game different?
I think everyone in general plays a lot harder. Obviously, the competition is there, and there's a lot of build-up. There's a lot more of you guys around, a lot more media around, a lot more lights. But at the end of the day, it's still a game. It's still 48 minutes and 2 teams and 1 winner. So approaching each game like that and taking it all in, first time really having the playoffs with all the fans and all the big lights. And so that part was fun. But, it's still a game.
Gabe, you mentioned it's your first real off season. What are your plans? Do you plan to go somewhere and train? Do you plan to work out with anybody on the team? Do you have any of that set yet?
Nothing really set. I spent most of my off season in Sacramento, though, so I'll be there working out with my people. I've talked to Kyle a little bit. Supposed to get with him in the off season. I'm sure I'll link up with a couple other guys, but kind of just go from there.
All right, Gabe, thank you.
Appreciate y'all. Thanks, Gabe. Have a good summer.
Tyler, what's it like to make the step that everyone sort of dared you to during the regular season, to be Sixth Man of the Year award winner, then to turn and have some struggles early in the playoffs, and then to sustain the groin injury that proved limiting later in the playoffs? Like, sort of what has that wild ride been like for you these last 6 weeks or so?
Well, first of all, the season was, good or great, as far as the experiences, the memories, everything that, happened. Obviously not the ending that we wanted, but, the playoffs for me were kind of a weird ride, ups and downs throughout the whole thing, but I think it was a learning curve for me. I think people forget I just turned 22, and it's still, only my 3rd playoffs, and, as I made a jump this year, I continue to get better, and, I think throughout my career there's going to be, well, especially early on throughout my career, there's going to be small, setbacks where I learn. It motivates me, it gets me better, and teaches me what I need to work on, to get better. And next time I'm in that situation, I'll be more prepared and better.
Have you already made your plans of what you want to work on in the off season, what you want to prioritize, how that's going to work for you?
No, I haven't. I haven't even thought about what I want to do this summer. I just know I need to get stronger, stronger than I was, and I think that takes care of a lot of things.
Tyler, it might be hard to remember 2 years ago, but clearly defenses were more keyed in on you, and I'm curious as to, from your perspective, how did that defensive attention materialize through this postseason run?
Throughout each series, I feel like I saw a different coverage each series. I feel like teams, they, prior to, how you say that word? There we go. Yeah, they did that a little bit more this playoffs. But I think throughout a season, I was the second leading scorer, and they made me a focus. And like I said, it was a learning point and learning curve for me to be able to go through different coverages, different defenders guarding me, how they're guarding me, and it's all a process.
Tyler, the growing injury, is that something that you had before kind of tweaking it in Boston, or was it did that just come up in that game?
It was, lingering a little bit throughout the playoffs, but nothing crazy. It was just a sore groin at one point, and then Game 3 is when I tweaked it a little bit more, and that's when I really couldn't play through it.
Tyler, you're eligible for contract extension this summer. How important is it for you to get that done?
I'm not sure yet, honestly, what's going to happen. We'll see what happens this summer. My agent will talk to who he needs to talk to, and we'll see what happens.
Tyler, you accepted the bench role this year, and you made the best of it, obviously. You ended up winning Sixth Man of the Year. Is it a priority for you this offseason to become a starter, a full-time starter for this team next year?
Yeah, for sure. In some way, I would like to start. I think it's my 4th year, so I think I've earned it, and we'll see what happens.
Tyler, back to the groin injury and working your way back to that Game 7. Is it something that you thought if you guys would have advanced, you would have been able to get better? Like, what was the whole process like in just trying to get back on the court for that final game?
Yeah, going into Game 7, I was kind of on the fence whether I should play or not, and I felt like I was healthy enough to play, and me and Spo had a good conversation, and he just felt like it was all hands on deck, and whether I was gonna play or not kind of just depended on how the game was going. But we liked the way that my groin was progressing, and we thought we would get Game 7, and I'd be close to 100% for Game 1 of the finals. So just unfortunate, the way the season ended, but I thought I'd be ready to go for Game 1.
Anything else?
Just one more thing. You said that your goal was to get stronger. You did that last offseason, and I know you put a lot of work into your lower body and your legs. Is it the idea to kind of go more upper body this year, or do you want to continue along the line of what you did last offseason?
I would say a little bit of both. I think my biggest thing was, I was able to add strength, but then as the season went on, I was losing muscle, losing weight because of how much games we play and everything like that. So I think, my big thing this year is adding the strength and then figuring out a way during the season that I can keep that muscle and sustain it throughout a whole 82-game season.
All right, Tyler, thank you.
Appreciate it.